Sidney Crosby will try to keep his team's playoff hopes alive while the Orange and Blue look to drive another dagger in Pittsburgh's season. We get you set for the Oilers of the Penguins right here on the Oil Stream pregame show. Hello, everybody. Tom Gazzola with you for another edition of the Oil Stream pregame show. Matt Kassian is at the satellite studios. He is ready to rock, and YouTube Trev holding things down back at EST Global HQ. Let's get Cass on here. You can text us 780-218-9999, or you could get at us in the nasty chat. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday, a late Sunday start here. Cass, how you doing, pal? Welcome back to my place.
I'm doing good. Spotless as ever, spick and span, clean and tidy, with a beautiful view of the city, as you can see behind me. Tom, I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to hang out. We haven't seen each other face to face in a little bit, so I'm glad to be here for this one.
We need to get you at on location at Hudson's. I know that's something that you've been working on, but yes, this is great. And then I love how before we started the show, you're like, you know what, guys, we really need to play Fortnite together. And Trev is very excited about that. And I said to him, Matt is very, very surgical, precision-like in his Fortnite.
Surgical might not be the right term. Aggressive.
Aggressive,
yeah. You said aggressive. Yes, certainly.
Yes.
But no, I mean, when I was a single guy, I got really good. Like when you're playing professional hockey, your days are usually done. If you're not in a game day and you're not traveling, you're done at like 1:00, 1:30 in the afternoon. And so the boys would just go home and you just go play. Now, we didn't have Fortnite back then. But some of the old skills they're still there, sometimes a little bit dormant. I have my moments, but yeah, we do need to get together. Would be fun actually would be to do a nasty party of people that play Fortnite, get a whole big thing going or something like that. That'd be fun. Don't know if it'll ever happen, but I think it's a dream.
If we could put together an Estes that apparently is happening according to Awanik and Dusty. I think, and if we could put together a golf tournament, I think we could figure out something to do with video games, but put it on the list. Did you know, I don't know if we've really talked about this, but YouTube Trev is like top 50 in the world at NHL.
No, I didn't know that.
He is.
Wow.
Trev?
Don't
be shy.
I mean, you don't have to tell everyone, Tommy. I'm decent. I'm decent at Chell. Not gonna lie. I've always wanted to stream. When I was growing up, like my stepdad, he'd always come down and watch me play. And I was like in middle school, and I'd just be like dummying adults at the time. So it's I think during the Christmas break, I played the world ranked #1 player, and I lost in 3-2 in overtime. So it's definitely something I'd like to do. Yeah. Further in the future for sure.
Yeah, pretty crazy though. But we'll get together. The teamwork makes the dream work. And Cass, great to have you at the satellite studios and showing off my kitchen/living room. But way better when we're here together. And that is an excellent way to start the show, is having all of us in tow. And we will catch up with Josh Getsoff shortly from the Pittsburgh Penguins play-by-play team. He is the play-by-play voice on the TV side. He is our dear friend and an excellent broadcaster. And Josh will be joining us in about 10 minutes time. It is the Oilers. It is the Penguins meeting for the first of two. They get together in a week from now. They will meet in Pittsburgh on the 10th. But tonight is the focus, certainly. Edmonton rolling into this one, 36-20-2 with 74 points. The Penguins, meanwhile, 27-23-8 and had 12-13-4 record on the road. And Cass, they had a brutal night last night in Calgary, blowing a multi-goal lead and watching the Flames make a special night out of Mika Kiprasov night.
Yeah, reading a lot and talking to some of the media people from the Pittsburgh end of things, I feel like there's a lot of sentiment that this was the season. That was it. If they would have won that game, maybe they still have a chance at the wild card, but that puts them way back. It was a game you should have won. It was a game you had the lead, and you just completely fall apart and blow it. Yeah. So for a lot of those people, they're kind of like, well, writing's on the wall here for this group. It could be 2 years in a row with no playoffs for the Pittsburgh Penguins. First time that has ever happened in Sidney Crosby's career. And yeah, for some people, they're throwing in the towel here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, who knows? You still could go on an incredible run, but they certainly didn't help themselves yesterday. And, maybe you're feeling a little bit of the night after blues here coming up against Edmonton.
I'll really quickly throw this out to you. The Oilers, and listen, we have game changers coming up in a little bit as well, but the Oilers played last yesterday. I can't even say last night. The Penguins did play last night. I'm looking at this. I'm like, this is obviously an advantage for Edmonton. They were home at a reasonable hour. Probably got in, I'm assuming, at like 8:30. Got to visit with family, settle in, sleep in their own beds comfortably. Flames and Pens goes late. It's the late game on a Saturday. Pittsburgh, even though it's a half an hour flight, probably didn't get in till what, 12:30, 1 o'clock?
Yeah, probably. By the time you have your slice of pizza, you get showered up and changed. You do the media stuff. You get on the plane, and they have to still load everything up. Still have to take off. Still have to land. Still have to bus from the airport to the hotel. Still have to get checked in. Still have to shut your mind and your body down. So yeah, it's I would say definitely an advantage Edmonton, just with the earliness of the game. Now you're coming from a time zone change, but it's only 1 hour. It's not like it's that far of a flight, really. So certainly advantage Edmonton in that regard, even though the total distance of travel was farther, but just the time of the game is a big thing, Tom.
Cass getting that win in Seattle. I know we had Joaquin Gage on and Belzy on the pregame. You were busy. I don't know how much of it you got to see, but the fact that they pulled it out and Stu Skinner played a really, really good game. What did you glean from yesterday's win?
Yeah, well, I mean, Stuart Skinner playing an excellent game was a big thing. He was rock solid all night. A couple of huge saves late in the game to seal it away. That one, and I think he got it with his blocker. They did play the replay of it. Coming across to keep it was a beautiful save, and you could kind of see right as the game finished, like him hunch over a little bit, like it was a lot of time in their zone, and he was probably pretty tired. But to me, that was a big story from the game. Less than a week ago, Tommy, people were in the nasty chat. They were texting in. They were furious with the goaltending. And now it's like that's gone completely quiet. Now, if you were to play horrible or have a bad game, then immediately before the trade deadline, people are going to freak out again. But it just kind of, for me, was a continued solidification. That's a big word for a Sunday.
Well done.
Solidification of that. I don't think they're looking to make any changes with their goaltending. I don't think they're going to make any changes with their goaltending. No. I think Stuart Skinner is going to run with it, and I think Pickard is going to run with the backup position. That's what they're going to go with. They're going to look to try to add assets up front. That just really, really just solidified that in my mind, Tommy.
All right, let's get into starting lineups and starting goaltenders. Josh Getsoff joining us in about 5 minutes' time, play-by-play voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins on the TV side. I'll also throw out the question of the day in a little bit. I think I'll save it for after we finish up with Josh before we get into game changers with Cass. But starting lineups for tonight, listen, no morning skate for the Oilers. They had an optional. Yesterday we saw McDavid between Draisaitl and Hyman. Nugent-Hopkins was with Kane and Janmark. McLeod was with Fogle and Perry. Gagner, we do know, will play tonight in for Derek Ryan. Derek Ryan's a little bit banged up, but Chris Knobloch says he fully expects him to be in that first game of the road trip in Boston. Holloway and Brown were on the flanks yesterday on the fourth line. We did see a little bit of tinkering. We saw them juggle with Nugent-Hopkins and was it with Perry and Fogle, and then I think McLeod had Kane for a little bit. There was a little bit in the second and third period, I think it was, where they switched things up. So we'll confirm lines as we progress through the night. No changes to the defense. Nurse with CC, Ekholm with Bouchard, Kulak with Desharnais, and as mentioned, Derek Ryan is going to sit this one out. Sam Gagner is in for the veteran center. So good to see Gagner back in action, and it is a back-to-back situation. Derek Ryan a little bit nicked up. He gets a chance to rest. As for the Penguins, this is how they skated yesterday in Calgary, the 4-3 loss. They allowed 3 goals in the last 10 minutes. Yegor Sharangovich with a nice shot to win it really late. I thought Nazem Kadri scored a brilliant goal. That's got to be the goal. It's got to be goal of the year finalist and in the category for it. I know it's the Flames, and it's hard to say, and it's a tough pill to swallow for Oiler fans, but it was a thing of beauty. End-to-end, couple of really nice moves. Anyway, that's beside the point. For the Penguins, here's how they skated in Calgary yesterday. Crosby between Drew O'Connor and Ricard Raquel. Evgeny Malkin between Riley Smith and Valtteri Puustinen. Lars Eller between Jonathan Gruden and Emil Bemstrom. Noel Acciari with Jensen Harkins and Jeff Carter. On defense yesterday was Marcus Pettersson with Erik Karlsson. Pierre-Olivier Joseph with Chris Letang. Ryan Graves with Chad Ruedel, and we'll see if there are any changes. We'll ask Josh Getsoff about that. I'm assuming we might see the Bison King in action, making his return to Edmonton as a member of the opposition. No Jake Guentzel, upper body issue for him. They're saying it could take a couple of weeks. Brian Rust, IR upper body. Matt Nieto, IR lower body. And we'll see where or if Jesse Puljujarvi slides in. Starting goalies for tonight, 31-year-old Calvin Pickard, 7-3, 253 goals against average, 905 save percentage, 1 shutout in 11 games this season, 2-1-1 record with a 291 GAA, 918 save percentage in 5 games against Pittsburgh over the course of his career. And then at the other end of the rink, confirmed 28-year-old Alex Nedeljkovic, 9-4-4, 267 goals against average, 915 save percentage, 1 shutout in 19 games this season. A 1-1 record Nedeljkovic has against Edmonton with a 263 GAA, 914 save percentage in 2 games against the Oil over the course of his career. So, Cass, we are not going to see Tristan Jarry, who played yesterday, the former Oil King. But when you look at that lineup, just some of your thoughts initially. And I know we'll see maybe a bit of a variation of the Pens lineup considering they played last night.
Yeah, we'll probably see a little bit of a variation. I mean, we'll talk about it in Game Changers, but it sounds old. It sounds old, Tommy. Sounds like it's aging. Still some players that can kill you. Still some players that can burn you. Still some guys that like to play offense and that they can put the puck in the back of the net. So it's a team that maybe, or I shouldn't say maybe. I mean, they're 10 points back of a wild card spot. They're not in their prime, but they still have some dangerous players. They still have some okay pieces, and they will rapidly, I think, approach a time when they need to retool and rejig and rebuild. But for now, again, they still have some players that can put the boots to you if you let them.
Just got this pass along, and Spec tweeted it out. No Jesse Puljujarvi today for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So,
do you think he still gets a tribute video?
I don't know. You know what? I do think he's going to be one of the first in line for pizza, though, in the first intermission up in the press box.
Yeah, very possible.
Very possible. You know what? Let's find out more about these Pittsburgh Penguins from our good pal, Josh Getsoff, play-by-play voice on the TV side of the Penguins. Josh, welcome back to town. I swear, man, about a week ago, there was no snow and it was nice and warm, but we got hit with a late winter storm. But how are you? Welcome back, pal.
Yeah, great to be on with you guys, Tommy. Great to talk to you again. Look forward to hopefully seeing you down here at the rink tonight. Yeah, the snow, well, I guess, when the schedule came out, we saw we were going Calgary, Edmonton back-to-back in late February, early March. We kind of all took a deep breath, and it was pretty much what I anticipated. Couldn't feel my face, couldn't feel my legs walking back from the Saddle Dome yesterday. I was a little soft today and just stayed inside here in Edmonton, but we're looking forward to this game tonight, and I will definitely be beating Jesse Puljujarvi in line for pizza after the first period.
Well, Cass and I might throw some elbows too. We will see you down there, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you in person. But that pizza, you know what? It's Pizza 73, and in the press box, it's just fine. It is just fine. They make it fresh, and it's just for us. So we will indulge together, and it'll be a grand old time. All right. Josh, I have to ask you, talk about the Saddle Dome, freezing your butt off, walking around that old barn. It was Mika Kiprasov night. It looked like a nice ceremony. I watched it. Kiprasov, such a good goalie for a long time, but it looked like the Pens were going to spoil the party. And then from what you saw in that last 10 minutes, what happened to the Penguins that led to the collapse to the Flames?
Yeah, first off, like you said, Tom, that was a really well done ceremony by the Flames. We didn't carry it on our air, but we obviously were in the building to watch it. And we've been lucky enough to be a part of a few of those here over the last few years. Yager's most recently in Pittsburgh, but then last year we were in LA for Dustin Brown's and Chicago for Marian Hossa. So we've seen a few, and that one was right up there. That was really well done by the Flames. So kudos to them. As far as the game is concerned, here's the thing, guys. The Penguins have played this kind of a game out a lot of times this year, and there's been different ways that they've met their ending. Sometimes it's been blown leads. Sometimes it's been the inopportunity to catch up in a game with multiple power plays in the third period, and sometimes it's just been purely they've been outskated and outworked. But last night, I think they said that after the game that the 2 points were in the bag was the quote that I read, and they let them get away. I mean, the Flames scored 2 goals in 32 seconds. and the roof kind of collapsed on the Penguins from that point forward. I mean, what they are right now, and the unfortunate thing is it's hard to even believe this when you have guys like, the confidence that guys like Crosby, Malkin, Carlson, Letang exude, at least from the healthy guy perspective. They are a fragile team. And when they face these kind of moments within games, this is now, 58, 59 games in. This is what they are, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know how you flip a switch to suddenly reach another level mentally when you're 2/3 of the way through the season. So it's unfortunate because I think they've squandered a ton of points as a result of this. I don't think I'm speaking out of line and saying that they're easily in a playoff spot if they were able to maintain half the lead they've had in games this year and put forth complete finishes to games that they've had this year. But it just hasn't gone that way. And there's been a variety of reasons. I mean, you mentioned just the blown lead, but the power play has been, for lack of a better word, atrocious at times this year, but given the talent level they have. And it's been a little puzzling when you think about the personnel they have, guys, to see where they are. But I've seen them now every night this year, and as puzzling as it is, it's also the reality.
Josh Getsoff from the Penguins with us on the show today. Josh, coming into action tonight, the Pittsburgh Penguins now 10 points back with their recent string of losses. They have a couple of games in hand. What are you sensing the sense of urgency is like around the team? Is they're trying to stay in the mix, maybe trying to retool, a lot of trade rumors floating around. What's the mentality in the dressing room right now?
I think that there's really a true understanding that this game could go a long way towards any kind of future impact they're going to have on this season. This is the last game of a 4-game road trip. They're going back to Pittsburgh after this to be home for a few days. And then you have the trade deadline. And I think if you're Kyle Dubas and that management staff, this trip was kind of the barometer, as in, okay, where are we coming out of it? You mentioned those games in hand. They are important because a couple of them come after head-to-head games against teams the Penguins are chasing in the standings, like the Islanders, like the Red Wings, like the Lightning, like the Capitals, teams like that would help them move up in the standings if they get those head-to-head points. But that's been the biggest thing this year is if they get them, because they've had these games in hand. They haven't necessarily taken advantage of them. The other side of the coin is, though, and I know you guys have probably followed this peripherally, obviously more tuned into Edmonton, but when you look at the Eastern Conference, the teams competing for the wild card, quite honestly, are just not very good. They're very inconsistent. So that's what I think gives everybody hope that if you can somehow pull something together and pull a 4 or 5 game win streak or a point streak for that matter together, you're right there and potentially in a spot when the dust settles. Now, that's a lot of ground they have to make up, but those games in hand can become a factor if they win them.
Yeah, and that's why, off the top, I was saying this could be a dagger if the Oilers beat the Pens and the Pens don't pick up any points. But I was looking at the standings and I'm going, if they get hot at the right time, whatever triggers that, if they just find ways to dig deep, whatever cliche we want to use, and they do string some wins together, they're back in the mix. So that's kind of, what I was looking at. And so on a positive note, Josh, if this team does put it together and gets back to the way it was playing when it was on that 3-game winning streak before these back-to-back losses, what does it do particularly well? What did it do before these last 2 losses well that kind of got them back in the win column there?
Well, it's funny because I think when you look at the Penguins, obviously everyone's seen the season that Sid has had, and it's nowhere near McDavid numbers, but it's been pretty impressive considering his age and some of the players he's been around. But what the Penguins need right now is what actually has kind of happened in these last couple of games, save the Seattle game when they were shut out, is they've gotten the depth scoring. And that's just something that has not been a thing really for the last month, but it has been, ironically enough, here over the last couple of weeks. And that was a part of that 3-game winning streak. They had gotten points in 4 straight in there. And they're getting guys, Jonathan Gruden just scored his first NHL goal last night in Calgary. Jeff Carter scores in that game. Lars Eller scores in that game. Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson have scored on this road trip. Eller had one in Vancouver that was huge in the first game of this trip last Tuesday. So I think that that's a positive that there certainly is something to build off of there. We talked about that on the broadcast. Just seeing these guys chipping in has to take a little weight off the shoulders of Sidney Crosby because, as you guys know, again, he's going into this game tonight without Brian Russ and without Jake Gensel, who are his two primary sidekicks there on that top line. And he's had kind of a rotating cast of characters around him. Ricard Raquel's been kind of the one consistent, and he has been a lot better here over the last few games. I thought he was great, actually, last night in Calgary, so I'll be interested to see how he plays here tonight. But these guys really have to pick up the slack, and the thing is they've been doing it. It's just those mental errors, those defensive lapses that have really cost them. And I think that there's a recipe there to win, and it's got to just be found a little bit more consistently here for this team in these final 24 games. And hopefully, no offense to you guys, it starts tonight.
Yes, Josh. Well, I have to obviously, no offense to you, but I hope it doesn't. But you mentioned Jake Gensel and how Sidney Crosby is missing him. He's quite I would say, a hot topic here frequently in Edmonton. I can't tell you how many texts and messages in just everything, people throwing all kinds of ideas of how we could bring Jake Gensel to Edmonton, which who knows if it happens in reality or if it's just a pipe dream for some fans. But what is Jake Gensel's status? We know he's still out with an upper body injury. Is there a timetable for his return, and how much, if he stays in Pittsburgh, will he impact the team upon his return to the lineup?
Well, I can tell you Jake Gensel is here in Edmonton. He made this trip with the Penguins, and if the last 3 games serve as any indication, he will be stopping by our booth, not during our broadcast, but he likes to see this kind of angle of things because he never sees anything when he's playing, obviously. So he does make himself pretty present. You'll see him around if you're going to the game tonight. He'll be at the press box. But, this is a guy that was a third round pick of the Penguins. He comes in, he scores on his first 2 NHL shots. He scores some huge goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2017. Is a huge factor in the Penguins winning the Stanley Cup in back-to-back years there in that 17th season. And he's not stopped. I mean, he's got 40 goals multiple times. He's got 80-plus points in his career. This season he was on a tear before he got hurt. But the thing with him is that a lot of his career has been well documented, has been played alongside Sidney Crosby. And there are people that will look at that, and I don't blame them because they don't see him every night and will say that he's a byproduct of Sid. What I can say is if he is traded, those people will quickly shut their mouths because they'll see how he plays when he's by himself, and he's just as good. He is an incredibly smart player. He is a gifted player. And I personally, it will be an awful thing if he gets traded because he's a good kid and he's really come up through the organization and one of those homegrown kind of products you want to keep forever. But you do understand it if it does happen from a business perspective, from Pittsburgh's look at least, with where they sit and where they're trying to be in the years to come. So, and he's obviously the biggest piece out there right now as far as trade deadline. But I think the price tag is going to be hefty because the Penguins know that there is somewhat of a desire for Jake to stay in Pittsburgh and sign a longer-term deal. He really likes it there. He and his wife have one child. I think they have one on the way. I don't want to speak out of tune there, but they definitely have made their home in Pittsburgh, and that's a place where he's really enjoyed a lot of success on and off the ice. And I think there's a desire for him to stay there, but of course, that doesn't always play out how the player would like in these kind of situations. And I think he does recognize that and understand the business side of it. So at the end of the day, these guys want to win, right? I know that's cliche, but it's so true. And I think if there's an opportunity for him to go somewhere and that team is going to pay him and give him a long-term deal, then that's probably what may happen if he is to be explored as a trade option. But I'm not so sure that that's 100% been decided yet, as crazy as it sounds. But obviously, if it is decided, that's your biggest trade piece on the market, no question.
Yeah, a lot of people going to be watching and seeing what happens with Gensel at the deadline on Friday. It is the Oil Stream pregame show right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Tom Gazzola, Matt Kassian, and YouTube Trev with you, joined now by Josh Getsoff, Penguins play-by-play voice on their TV broadcast, our good friend. And Josh, a guy that we know well around here and did for a number of years, winds up in Pittsburgh. He is, yes, at Puljujarvi. Cass has got a smirk on his face because Cass loves analytics. And we know, yes, he always had great analytics, but the real stats show donuts across the board in 8 games. I think he's +1 with 2 penalty minutes, what have you seen from the Finn, the big boy, the Bison King, as we've known him to be in his time in Pittsburgh?
Well, first of all, really nice kid, as you guys know.
Yes.
Came in you don't know what to expect when you're coming off the double hip surgery and the road that he's come on to come back into the National Hockey League and get to see some playing time. And the little conversation that I've had with him, I've come away very impressed. Like a really down-to-earth, nice kid, funny. But the other side of it is he also has the biggest head, and I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally, that I may have ever seen for a hockey helmet. Like, I don't know what the analytics are on head size by helmet, but he has got to be up there in the top of the league. It's impressive. But, in all seriousness, his stats, they kind of tell the story, guys, unfortunately, of how he's been with the Penguins. And it's not to say that he hasn't had his moments, because his first game, he had a couple great opportunities when he jumped into the lineup. He has been physical. I think he's been very productive as a guy on a forecheck, creating turnovers and giving the Penguins opportunities in the offensive zone. And we know he's a big, rangy guy, obviously. So I think that those kind of things have worked in his favor, but the production hasn't been there. And that's kind of how he found his way out of the lineup, because this Penguins team has just been trying to find the right pieces, like I mentioned, to get depth production. And I think they thought that they'd take a flyer on Puljujärvi. I mean, he signed to a 2-year deal, so he's still a part of the organization. It's not like he's going anywhere. But I think that they maybe were thinking, after a handful of games where he did produce and play fairly well in Wilkes-Barre in the American League, then maybe he'd come up and find a bit of a spark. And offensively, at least, that just hasn't been there. But I can say, I mean, this is a guy that, he was a former top, 5-10 pick for the Oilers. He's a guy that has a bit of a pedigree. I know that there's been a downward slope in his production here over the last calendar year plus, but I don't think he's out of the mix in Pittsburgh, although, yes, you are right, he will not play tonight.
Cass?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, first, Josh, any lineup changes we can expect tonight from the Pens coming off of a tough loss yesterday against the Calgary Flames?
I don't think there's going to be anything up front or on the back end as far as personnel changes. Maybe some line movement, but it'll be the same 12 forwards, same 6 defensemen that played in Calgary last night. The goaltender is going to be different. Alex Nedeljkovic will play, so the Oil King, Tristan Jarry. We're really killing all the local storylines tonight, aren't we? From the Penguins perspective, he'll back up after that game last night against Calgary. And I'll be honest, guys, we wondered if the Penguins won that game, if he might come back tonight if his workload was fairly light. And his workload was fairly light. He only had 20 shots on goal, and he had 10 after 2 periods. So Mike Ruffalo, I was calling the game, we kind of looked at each other and said, maybe this is an opportunity for Jars to go back-to-back if they can hang on and win this game. And obviously we know how it played out. And needless to say, that not that it was all on Tristan Jarry, but you're going to switch goaltenders after a game like that to try to change things up back there. So Nedeljkovic has been good. He's been exactly, I think, kind of what they had hoped for as far as the backup behind Tristan Jarry. He hasn't played for about a week plus. And it'll be interesting to see how he handles tonight, because there's no better way to jump back into game action than to have some of the guys that you have coming down on him.
Well, he knows that Conor McDavid only passes, so doesn't have to worry about him shooting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point.
Josh, finally, just what kind of game are you expecting tonight?
Well, I think if the Penguins have any say in how they'd like to play this game, they've had 2 incredibly good starts their last 2 games. Which has not always been a strong suit for them here over the last couple of months. But they've had a really good start in Seattle. Unfortunately, gave up a kind of a fluky bounce on the first goal in a game that they lost to the Kraken. And then last night, they actually built up a 2-0 lead with how well they played and kind of took the energy out of the building from the Flames. I'd like to see them do a similar kind of thing tonight. I don't think it's the same kind of opponent, obviously, that's on the other end of the ice. No disrespect to Calgary, although some of you out here probably would love to disrespect Calgary. But I think that, this is a game where if the Penguins get caught in a track meet, they're in big, big trouble. So they're going to try to slow it down. They're going to try to be doing a little bit of chip and chase and keep the puck behind the Oiler defense, all those kind of cliches that we love in the hockey world, but that's the reality. I mean, if they start to do a skating match with these guys, it's going to be a tough sledding for them. And I think that's kind of what we've seen here head to head when these teams have matched up the last couple of years, right? When it's gotten to that skating match, the Oilers have kind of pulled away.
Josh, I look forward to seeing you at the rink in about an hour and about hour and a half. And we'll get you to the front of the line. I'll make sure Cass throws some elbows. Nobody messes with Cass in the press box, and you get the first slice, okay?
I appreciate you guys. I'm going to go put my makeup on before I eat pizza because that's what we do around here.
All right. I'll see you in a bit. Thank you, Josh.
All right, boys. Talk to you soon.
There's Josh Getsoff, Penguins play-by-play voice on their TV broadcast. Great guy. Nice to have him back in town. Looking forward to seeing him. Cass, I mean, Josh is a positive guy. He's worked in and around the team for a lot of years. He was the radio voice. He did online digital stuff for them for a while. And that was as brutally honest as I've ever heard him. And listen, he's not going to BS you. But when you are on the team side, you're supposed to focus on the positive so that management doesn't get mad at you and all that stuff. I had to deal with it at my time in Oilers TV. He was straight up about the Penguins and their situation, which I think is very much appreciated.
Well, I think it probably tells me it's at the point where you have no other choice, right? Like, where you're like, I can't spin this pot. I mean, it was like the Oilers at the start of this season where I like taking a positive spin on things if I can, but when things are so rough and you keep seeing the same problems over and over again, and in the Penguins case, giving up leads, losing games you should win, falling apart for no apparent reason, having a horrible power play or a power play that's struggling, just all the repeat issues that just keep happening again and again and again. Pretty hard to keep with that positive note. So I mean, I appreciate it too. Appreciate the comment on the Bison King's head, because we obviously all know that, and apparently, the helmets still don't fit. So that's good to know.
The nuances of Jesse Puljujarvi, Pittsburgh, and the Penguins faithful starting to learn about all that it entails. Taylor from Indiana via the nasty chat says, where does Josh Getsoff with saying no disrespect to the Flames? I like it. I love the animosity. No love lost between the Oilers and the Flames and the fan bases, even if you're in Indiana like Taylor is, which is fantastic. All right. Let's get to some text here. 780-218-9999. And then, of course, if you're watching, you can get in on the nasty chat. This one from C-Dub in Tulsa. Man, all of our Americans are tuning in. I love it. C-Dub says, howdy, gents. Number 97 had no points versus Pittsburgh in the last matchup, 4 points in each of the previous two. Before that, expecting lots of McDavid magic tonight. Also, can you throw out a hello to Fireman Paul? He's a first-time watcher and a great old man. Nux, go Oilers, C-Dub in Tulsa. Fireman Paul, what's up from Cass and I and YouTube Trev? Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying the show. We do this every Oilers game day. It's a lot of fun, right, Cass?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Happy to have you join us, Paul. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. Hopefully you like Tom's hair and his suit, because he looks sharp. And hopefully you see how clean his house is, because it's just for any time that's the first time watching and you've never seen Tom's kitchen, you're in it. So
thanks. Yes, we're both live on location at the Satellite Studios, aka my place just outside of Ice District. Cass coming down to the game tonight, which is awesome. Looking forward to getting down to the rink. And then the team hits the road for a road trip. They go to Boston, they go to Columbus, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh, wrapping things up in Pitt a week from today. And we'll see how the Oilers can handle that road trip, but some winnable games there for sure. All right, Cass, you want to get into Game Changers, or do you want to roll some audio and video?
Let's roll some audio and video, then we'll do Game Changers.
Okay, that sounds good. Trev, who do you want to go to first? You set it up.
Yeah, let's hear from the Oilers head coach, Chris Knobloch.
Talk a lot about Crosby. You ever kind of come across him? Will it be somewhat neat to have him play for the team against yours, or are you just focused on your club?
No, I know about Crosby, how good he can be, and I saw him in the regular season. Obviously he's a good player, and then I saw him in the playoffs one year against Philadelphia when I was on the bench, and had a really big appreciation of how good of a player he is and how he elevated his game during that playoff series. And I saw it against in a playoff series against New York also, where they were kind of in control. Crosby got hurt, and New York came back and won that series. And obviously a really good player and has the ability to step it up even when there's even more pressure.
You marvel at what he's been able to do, Crosby's been able to do at his age, and he's still playing at that elevated level.
Oh, absolutely. For this year, I think he's probably going to have second most goals in his career this season, and being able to do it at his age, and doesn't look like he's slowing down at all. And a lot of I'm very impressed with what he's done.
I know your captain takes kind of example from him, and I guess is how does seeing a guy like that kind of reflect maybe into your team and going, hey, this guy's still doing it at this age?
Well, those elite players, obviously they're very competitive and they want to be the best and they continue pushing themselves. And you can look at, yes, they're born with a lot of talent, but their work ethic and how much time and effort they put into their game. And even when they're at their best, the endless amount of hours that they still continue working on their craft. And, it's, they're good, but they always want to be better, and that's why they've had their careers that they've had.
Stuart's obviously giving you 3 pretty good starts here in a row. Just a thought, where do you think specifically the defense is? You've transitioned into a different type of D than they were playing before. They've now had you as coach for 40 games. It's not a type of D that some people think you play passively with it. That's not true. You don't want your defense playing passively. How do you think your 3 pairings are handling it right now?
I think they've been doing a pretty good job. And the defense, if they're going to have success, they need the support of our low forward. And usually that low forward's our centerman. And anytime they get exposed, it's a lot of the times it's our centerman being a little bit late. But as working as a tandem, they've been pretty successful with it. And I'm not sure what our defensive stats are as of late, how much time we're spending in the defensive zone. I know definitely during our winning stretch, the amount of time we spent in the D zone was probably number 1 in the league. A lot of that had to do with how well we moved the puck out and we weren't stuck having to defend. But I think we've been talking about having those quick kills, limiting times in the defensive zone. The longer you spend in the defensive zone, you're going to have breakdowns. And so we don't want to be passive. We want to protect the slot, and that's where goals come, and that's the most dangerous part of the ice is. But we also feel that the more time you spend in the defensive zone, the more bad things can happen.
We know Pickard's starting, same lineup?
No. Derek Ryan is just going to be out tonight, just a minor injury. Should be back in for Boston, so Sam will play tonight.
Chris, when it comes, obviously this is a stressful time of year for a lot of people with the trade deadline coming up. How much communication is there between you and Ken and talking about what you need and who's out there, what can get? Like, I know you have your own job to do, but when it comes to the deadline?
Ken is talking to numerous people, including myself, the assistants, the pro scouts, everybody, continually through the day. And, he'll get my feedback of what I think we need. And, after a game and we see weakness that sometimes changes, but, we're talking quite a bit about what we need and how we think we can be stronger and what, if we did add somebody who would be, what a player's role would be. Does he move to a different wing, a centerman, all those kind of scenarios.
Considering the run that this team has been on since you took over, are you happy with your group if they just stood pat, or would you like to see an addition or two come in?
I like our team. I think we're good, and obviously Ken knows a lot more than I do about what it takes to win in the playoffs. With his success and the amount of years he's been a general manager. Right now, I'm very proud of the team that we have. I like the way we play, and as for do we need additions, that's not for me to say. I like our team, but I think Ken has a good pulse on what it takes to win in the playoffs.
All right, that was head coach Chris Knobloch talking about his team and potential moves. Obviously, the Friday trade deadline coming up. We will have full-on coverage here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Looking forward to Friday, and then an early game on Saturday, 10:30. Cass, and I think we're going to have to preempt Hello Hockey or pre-record it, something like that. So it's going to be a crazy week. And the Oilers hitting the road starting probably flying out. I would assume they're not flying out tonight. They're going to fly out tomorrow. And then they play in Boston on Tuesday. Obviously get Columbus Thursday, trade deadline on Friday. And then on Saturday, they are in Buffalo and Sunday in Pittsburgh. So a busy, busy week coming up. Or is that Saturday, Sunday, I should say. That's going to be a very, very busy week. Cass, before you unmute yourself, there you go. I got you. What do you think of what Chris Knobloch had to say?
Well, pretty straightforward. I mean, we'll talk about Sidney Crosby again in a little bit here on Game Changers, but some pretty amazing things that he's doing. And yeah, hey, I mean, I would say pretty standard answers as far as the defense and lineup. I mean, he's not going to go jump around on that a little bit, but a coach that's going to be heading down the stretch run in the NHL for the first time as a head coach with a group that we've seen some really good things from in his tenure, and we've seen some things that have at times not been great during his run for.
No, Cass, he'll be back. Trev, that's my internet. We have a lot of like baby monitors and stuff, and apparently, as Joaquin Gage, former cable guy, says, lots of crossed up signals. So Cass will be back shortly. But what'd you think of what Knobloch said there, Trev?
Yeah, honestly, kind of the same thing. Didn't give too many details. Honestly, he's just keeping it pretty simple tonight. There's nothing too much going. I didn't pick up a heck of a whole lot, Tommy, honestly. It was just pretty simple. He kept it pretty tight and clean. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Let's go back inside the Oilers locker room. We'll have Cass on the flip side of this. Let's go to Conor McDavid.
You guys were tied for 31st place in the league early on, and now you're second in the division. Just maybe that journey that you guys have been on.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not a very good start, and we've done a lot of work to put ourselves back into the playoff fight and fighting for playoff positioning and all that. So that's a good thing. I think it's a credit to everybody in the room for sticking with it, sticking together, and working our way back.
Last year, Kenny Holland at the trade deadline made some pretty significant moves. What do you anticipate here, in the next week or so coming up?
That's not my decision. I don't know what to expect. Obviously, we believe in our group in there as is. With that being said, I think we've put ourselves in a position to maybe look to see what's out there. I'm sure Kenny and the whole staff is doing that, and anything we can do to make our team better is a good thing.
I know that's not your job, but does Kenny have input with the players? Does he come to you guys and say, what do you think? Like, I know he likes to get input from pretty much everyone around him.
Yeah, I think he more just keeps us in the loop. He's not looking for any opinions or anything like that. He's just he does a great job of communicating with his players and being open with them. So that's why guys like him so much.
Still special to line up against Sidney Crosby in a game. I know you've been doing it a few years now, but
yeah, it's always exciting. Testing yourself against one of the best players to ever do it. It's a great opportunity.
Do you marvel at his? I mean, as you've been through the grind now for several seasons, how productive he still is. Sort of a career twice as long as what you've been doing.
Yeah, it's amazing, but I'm not going to say it's surprising. He's an amazing player and loves the game and puts so much into it. It's not surprising to see him still having an amazing season at 36 now. But it's impressive, but not surprising, no.
Last 3 games, Stuart's really helped you guys out. It was a great performance yesterday. Just a thought on, getting the goals against down and how it makes it. I mean, it's sort of obvious, but at the end of the day, you get that sort of performance, you're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, Stu's been great. During our stretch there, helping us win games yesterday. He was absolutely massive. 3 games in a row, he's been really big for us to get some big wins. So, he's a big part of our group, and when he's on,
we feel really good about our chances of winning.
Calvin's going to get the call tonight. Chris has already sort of indicated that. Just a thought on how, sometimes you need a backup goaltender that's just got sort of the right temperament and personality to complement a guy like Stu, but also be a part of your overall team.
Pix has been great. He's come in and he's been a great part of the group, big part of the group. He's great for Stu. Those two get along really well and really do a great job of lifting each other up and pushing each other to be better. That's all you can really ask for from your goalie duo. And Pix in his own right, his own game has been at a very high level here for a long time here.
Just go back to the Penguins a little bit here. They built that template for success, and they've had so much success. And they have those pillars with Crosby, Letang, and Malkin. You guys have similar pillars here. I guess do you kind of try to look at that and then say, okay, this is something that hopefully we can try and embody?
Well, I think it is a copycat league, obviously. But with that being said, every team and every organization is trying to figure out their own way to do it, to win. And obviously we're trying to figure that out here, much the same as they did earlier on in their careers and stuff like that. So every organization goes through it. I can see the comparisons, obviously, but we're our own group and we're trying to find our own way to have that ultimate success.
All right, that was the captain, Conor McDavid, talking about facing Sidney Crosby. I know he's obliging, Cass, but I remember when we went to Buffalo and they would play against Eichel, and he's like, I don't see a rivalry, and I think it's the same way with Crosby, right? He just goes through the motions because he has to talk about it.
Yeah, but
they are two special players. But
I know, but there's for players like that, they even if they go through them, it seems like they're going through the motions, answering those questions, and they get them. And I know as professionals, you're trying to prepare the same way every day. There's a little bit of you. It's like you want to beat those guys, right? You want to be better than them. You want to be the best player in the world. You want to win a hockey game, and he's more focused on winning the game than outperforming Sidney Crosby. But he 100%. Those guys go into it. And I know, again, it's they get asked about it every time, but I do think they get excited about it every time because they know it's a big matchup. It's an important matchup. And it's one I think they enjoy. Certainly. It's you want to be the best and you want to beat the best. And Sidney Crosby is certainly one of the best of all time. So it may seem like a little bit of a road answer because that's kind of what we get from Conor McDavid in general. But I do think there's a little bit of extra incentive in games like these to beat those type of guys.
I like when these two lock horns and play against each other, and I am looking forward to them playing on the same team for whatever Canadian team is assembled for the Four Nations face-off. And if they get to Italy for the Olympics in a couple of years from now, I'm very eager to see those two on the same team, obviously at different points in their careers, being 10 years apart. All right, YouTube, Trev, let's go inside the Oilers locker room one more time. Who do we have left?
He is the goalie tonight for your Edmonton Oilers, Calvin Pickard.
2022, where you beat the Penguins 3-2 in a shootout and stopped Crosby on a breakaway. Do you remember?
I do, yeah. It wasn't that many starts ago, to be honest. I think it was my only start that year in with the Red Wings, and it was a good opportunity at the time to play. And our team played really well that night, and it was actually a really good game.
So when Crosby or a player of that caliber is coming in you on your breakaway, how aware are you of it that it's him, or do you treat it like any other opportunity?
Obviously you want to be patient. He's one of the best players in the game, has been forever, and it's always a privilege to play against those guys, and you got to be extra aware when he's on the ice, and definitely excited for the challenge.
You relish the opportunity tonight?
For sure, yeah. No, every game I get to play is a good opportunity for me, and our team's had a really good week here, and we just want to cap it off the right way.
What do you think of Stewart's game yesterday?
He was outstanding. I could tell right from the first save he made, he was dialed in, and we definitely needed him. He was definitely the difference in the game.
Calvin, we've seen your work ethic, the way that you show up, the attitude that you have every single day, and you've said, I have to stay ready, yes, by practicing and being able to stay there, but mentally, how do you stay there as well?
Yeah, practice is good. It's physically demanding. Those games that I'm watching Stu play, try and take the most out of it, see what's going on out there. And I've been around for a while now, so I've definitely gotten my fair share of different types of games. So tonight's no different. Don't want to put too much pressure on myself and go out there and do my job.
When we do see you out there, Stuart Skinner seems to be the biggest fan on the bench cheering for you. Can you just talk about the importance of the tandem that you guys have and being able to have that strong of a relationship?
Yeah, it's important for sure. He does it quite a bit for me, and I do it for him as well. And he's been playing really well. It's fun to see him succeed. He puts the work in, and he's dialed in, especially for a young guy. It's very impressive. And I just want to keep this thing rolling tonight.
All right, that was Calvin Pickard getting the start. Alex Nedeljkovic at the other end of the rink for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Text us 780-218-9999, or if you're watching on the EST YouTube channel, you can get in on the nasty chat. Tom Gazzola, Matt Kassian live on location at the Satellite Studios just outside of Ice District, and YouTube Trev holding things down back at ESTHQ. I saw a text here, and I wanted to throw it at you, Cass, really quickly. It's from Maple Jed. Says, hi, TG and Cass. Can we talk about Toffoli now? Because it looks like the Devils' season is crashing and burning after a tough day in LA today.
Yeah, I mean, Toffoli's an interesting one from a player that you might be able to bring in. Do you think the Devils actually trade him, though, Tommy?
I don't know. I think that they feel like they're a better team than what they've shown this year, and they probably think that they're a goalie away from being a contender and getting back to what they did last year. So I don't know if they just turn into full-on seller mode. I think. Yeah,
I don't know if they do either. I don't know if they do either. So I think for Edmonton it'd be intriguing. It's certainly someone you want to make a phone call about. Yeah. As far as a player that could come in that could give you a little bit of a boost. I don't know what the cost would be, particularly as you stated. I think New Jersey doesn't view themselves at this point as sellers. So a little bit of a different situation because you have a team that has been underperforming that still, it's not like they're just entering a hard reset or anything like that. So a little bit unique, but hey, I'd have time for a Toffoli conversation for sure. If I was
so would I. UFA at the end of the year, making 4.25 schmil, and he is 31. So if he believes in what the Devils can do and he thinks that they could rebound, maybe he says, no, I don't want to get traded. Or he could get traded, fetch them some assets, and then sign back with them. That can happen too. So I've got time for it, Cass. Whether or not now the Devils start to look at it and say, you know what, we can move on from him. If I'm Edmonton, I'm putting in a call faux show. So just my 2 cents, but I like that text. Thank you, Maple Jet. Appreciate it very much. We'll get to more texts shortly, but first we need to take care of some business, and that is in the form of Game Changers with our game analyst, Matt Kassian, brought to you as always by Damon Bunting RE/MAX Elite. Damon Bunting, consistent top-producing realtor in Greater Edmonton and among RE/MAX realtors. He and his team love to help you find that right home or make the move from your current home. Check him out, DamonBunting.com, or visit his Instagram at Damon Bunting Real Estate. Cass, numero uno, you hinted at this earlier, age versus youth.
Yeah, well, I mean, Conor McDavid got asked about it. We've talked about it a little bit, but the ageless Sidney Crosby having I don't want to say a resurgent season, but having a fantastic season, putting the puck in the net, just doing very Sidney Crosby-like things in the offensive zone, really trying to pull and drag the rest of the Pittsburgh Penguins along to try to hopefully get back in that playoff race where they're not sitting anywhere close to right now. But going up against Conor McDavid, I mean, it's the old guard versus the new guard, and we just talked about it, but it's to me it's one of those exciting matchups to watch. I mean, it's fun to watch one of the best players to ever play the game. That's a quick shout out to the question of the night, which we'll get to at some point here. One of the best players to ever play the game going up against the current best player in the game, which is just fun to me. I mean, it's fun to watch those. I had the pleasure of being at that first game between Crosby and McDavid, which was an absolute blast. And it's just one of those matchups. It's exciting from a fan standpoint. And from a play standpoint, two guys that at times carry their respective teams in Conor McDavid and Sidney Crosby. So it's a fun matchup to watch. I think an important matchup. If Crosby has an unreal night, well, yeah, very likely that the Pittsburgh Penguins could win a hockey game. If McDavid has an unreal night, well, very likely that the Edmonton Oilers win the hockey game. If they both have an unreal night, who knows who can win it? And it's going to be exciting to watch, certainly, if both those guys are absolutely playing at their best. So two of the best players in the world. I mean, Crosby's still in that conversation, is one of the top guys in the world, still at 36, going on 37 years old. But still a pleasure to watch. And two very stylistically different players as well, where McDavid's all about the explosiveness, generating off the rush typically. Sidney Crosby is the best I have ever seen at spitting off of people and creating space in the offensive zone when there is none. But using, defensemen basically is picks and spinning off of pressure. He does an unbelievable job with it. So stylistically very different players, but both amazing players and a really fun matchup to watch, Tommy.
It just feels like they do everything right. They're just so complete, but I know they're different guys, and you alluded to that and you described that, but you watch them and you're like, man, they do not do much wrong ever. And I know they're not perfect, but it is incredible to watch them. And I know when we can watch a McDavid every game, every practice, you nitpick and you look at things, sure. And I'm probably assuming it's the same way with Crosby, but man, you see them and they're two brilliant players. So with that being said, I'm going to splice in the question of the day, Cass, as we roll along here on Game Changers. Where does Sidney Crosby rank among all-time NHL players? Top 5, top 10? We want to hear from you. 780-218-9999 and in the nasty chat. Cass, what say you?
Ooh, he's right. He's right on the cost. I think, man, he's probably number 5 on my list.
Okay.
Maybe number 4.
Okay.
Number 5 or number 4. So he's right there. If you have him outside the top 10, you're crazy. So you're absolutely nuts if you have Sidney Crosby outside the top 10 players of all time. I would probably have him as number 4, number 5.
Yeah.
In that right in that range. You got Gretzky,
Lemieux.
You got Lemieux. You have Gordie Howe.
Yeah.
You have Bobby Orr, and then I think I probably have Sidney Crosby at that number 5 spot.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby would probably be up there for me as well. Yeah, and then where McDavid takes this thing, I mean, he has to win some Stanley Cups to really launch himself into that discussion. But I think McDavid has the ability to thrust himself into it. But
I think this is how I say it. I think Connor McDavid is the most talented player of all time. I think he's the most talented player of all time. Now, he's not the greatest player of all time yet, but he hasn't achieved that. If he wins a bunch of Stanley Cups, well, all of a sudden we can insert him into that conversation, I think.
Right.
But he is the most talented of all time. Hasn't hit the greatest yet at this point.
Hey, all those guys that we mentioned have won multiple times, and that's important to note. So that comes with it as well. Could happen for McDavid. Absolutely could happen. But what say you? Where does Sidney Crosby rank all time among NHL players? Top 5, top 10. Cass and I in agreement, top 5. Trev, what would you say about that?
Oh, I'm happy you boys let me in on this one. I definitely think he's 4 for me. He's 4 for me. I've got Wayne Gretzky 1. I've got Bobby Orr 2. I've got Mario Lemieux. And then Crosby's right at 4. Like, it's one of those things you really just go into his game and you're like, well, he's good at this and then he's good at that. And then the more you think about it, he's, his back checking is just unreal. His hustle, his shot, his snapshot, his backhand is just unreal. He's a triple gold winner. He's won it all. Like, everything he does is excellent. Like, he's not the fastest skater, but that's never hindered his game. He's one of the most shifty skaters ever. Like, it's unbelievable what he's been able to do. So yeah, he's 4th, and at 5 I'd probably have Ovechkin. Hot take maybe, but for sure. If Ovechkin catches Gretzky for all-time goals, I think you could probably put him in top 5 maybe on some list. But he might be right outside of top 5 right now. But as far as Crosby goes, yeah, he's one of the best to ever do it. He's one of the most, he's won it all, right? He's a leader. It's just insane. I could talk at length of just how unreal a player and talent he is. And it was a joy to watch, as a kid growing up in the locker room. It was always, Sid or Ovi, and it's so fun to talk about, and you're still talking about him, which just, it stands the test of time. He's just an absolute beauty, Canadian boy, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So top 4, he's 4 for me.
Love that answer. I like how you were enthusiastic about hopping in there. And I'm just waiting for all the Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman people to get in there.
There's a couple of Matt Sundins going on too.
Oh, stop it. He is not top 10 of all time. Get out of here with that noise. Who are some old, like Maurice Richard? I think, we credit him as being one of the best goal scorers of all time. Obviously different eras. That was like 60 years ago now. So yeah, and listen, that's a debate that you could have a few wobbly pops, a couple of 6 o'clock or loggers, and there might be some yelling and some people getting upset and raised voices, but it is a good one. And I think we are going to watch 2 guys that might wedge their way into the certainly top 10 of all time, and then potentially even the top 5. So always a treat. And I like that. So text us 780-218-9999. Where does Sidney Crosby rank among all-time NHL players? Is it top 5? Is it top 10? And in the nasty chat as well. We want to hear from you. All right. So number 1 on Game Changers. We went through it. It was age versus youth. Number 2, Cass, shift management.
Yeah, really important. Back-to-back games. Now, this is for both teams. We're in a back-to-back game situation. We talked at the start of the show, if you missed it, about how probably a little bit of a tougher travel day coming from Calgary for the Pittsburgh Penguins, just from a time standpoint, because it's a late game. They get in late, where Edmonton early flight, in their beds early for getting a good sleep, but still back-to-back games. You still played yesterday. You still had to battle one out. So for both teams, not getting caught out there is really important. Making sure that you're changing at opportune times. Coaching has something to do with that as well, to make sure that you're not pushing it in terms of shift length, even if it's shorter and there's a face-off and you need to pull a line. Puck management during those shifts is also really important, and kind of part and parcel to that. And for each teams, and for Edmonton, if we look at times what they're able to do from a sustained offensive zone pressure, that goes a long way to tiring a team out. That again, you're playing a back-to-back situation here, and both teams in it. So that shift management, making sure you're smart with it, puck management, part and parcel to that, really, really important in this game tonight.
All right, that was number 2 on Game Changers. Number 1 was age versus youth. Number 2, shift management. Number 3, Cass, because no Bison King tonight. We did want to talk about him. He is not playing. No Jesse Puljujarvi for the Penguins. You want to shift the focus to Pittsburgh's power play struggles, and they have some amazing talent, like Josh Getsoff was saying earlier, but they are not getting it done on the PP.
They are not getting it done in the PP. Overall, 28th. Is it 28th? Yeah, 28th in the NHL, running at a nice crisp 14.7%. So it's been a big struggle for them, where they've had all kinds of issues putting the puck in the net. They've had all kinds of issues in game-breaking scenarios, having success in the power play, which is kind of baffling when you look at who they have. You have Erik Karlsson, you have Sidney Crosby, you have Evander Malkin. Now you have some guys that have been banged up, like a Gazzola, who normally slides in that unit, but isn't playing because he's hurt right now. But overall, big disappointment. A huge part of Pittsburgh's inability to make up ground and to claw into that wild card race has been their power play, and super important for Edmonton that you kind of keep it that way. Now we've seen the past couple of weeks, coming out of the All-Star break, we saw the penalty kill completely fall apart for a little while, and it's clawed back into more of what we saw during the run, which is just more consistency, killing off those big moments, actually getting the puck out of the zone when they have opportunities to get it out of the zone, winning some of those key face-offs for clears at the start of penalty kills. So they've been kind of getting back into that groove again, and you just want to keep that going. I mean, that's an area of separation where if you can have your penalty killers be better than Pittsburgh's power play, and Edmonton's power play can click along at its normal rate, well, you set yourself up for being in a really good position to win a hockey game. And that penalty kill has struggled, or power play has struggled, and that penalty kill for Edmonton, that group, you have to be looking at this and going like, this is this is an area of our hockey game where if it ended up being even 5-on-5, special teams could be the difference. Very, very, very possible in a game like this. So make sure you're good on the kills. Clear the puck when you can clear the puck. And by the way, they've also given up 8 shorthanded goals this season. The Pittsburgh Penguins have. So maybe some opportunity there as well to take advantage of.
28th overall, like you alluded to, Cass, the Penguins power play is riding into tonight 14.7%. Now on the road, 13.3. That is 30th in the NHL. And they take chances and have gotten burned 8 times. That is a good point. So the Oilers need to move their feet and force the Penguins to take those penalties and take advantage if they can make it happen. That was Game Changers, brought to you as always by Damon Bunting, RE/MAX Elite. Check him out, DamonBunting.com, or visit his Instagram at Damon Bunting Real Estate if you're looking to get into the market or if you want to move from your current home. All right, let's take a look around the National Hockey League, and I'll get to some text shortly. Keep those coming in, 780-218-9999. 6 games on the schedule today. Arizona earlier beating Washington 5-2 in the nation's capital down south. LA spanking New Jersey. That's why Jimbo was asking about the Toffoli conversation. 5-1 the final there. That was all LA Kings. The Devils had nothing. Had to pull Akira Schmid. Or no, they had Dawes in there, and then they put Schmid in. Didn't matter. They were toast in that one. 5-1 was the final. Buffalo 2-1 over Winnipeg after 2. A bit of a surprise there, but Buffalo's been playing good. They beat Vegas. That was a good sign, too. That helped the Oilers out and helped get them into second in the division. Minnesota, San Jose in mini tied at 2 late in the second. Then you've got Anaheim and Vancouver in Orange County. 3 minutes remaining in the first, 1-1 there. And then the Oilers and the Pens wrapping it up with a weird 7 o'clock start on a Sunday, but it should be a marquee matchup for the Oilers and the Penguins in front of everybody that's still awake watching hockey tonight. Cass, I saw a text earlier. I did want to get to it, and it did allude to the Oilers and the Golden Knights situation right now. Edmonton has slipped into second in the division at 74 points. They've won 3 in a row, 6-3-1 in the last 10, an opportunity to make it 4 straight against the Penguins team. Lost last night, lost a lead late in the game in the last 10 minutes. And then Vegas is 3-6-1 in its last 10 and has played 3 more games than Edmonton. The text said, and it's from Jimbo, says, how many of the remaining games do you think the Oil need to win to stay in their current position in the standings? It may come down to the games in hand they have over the other team. So do you like their chances of staying in second?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up. I want to see games remaining and all that, so I'm pulling that up. I do like their chances. Vegas very, very banged up right now. A lot of injuries. You know, we could see the old Vegas swindle at the deadline, where they bring in 10 million of guys, and Mark Stone miraculously recovers right in time for playoffs. But they have they've had some guys hurt. You know, Jack Eichel's been hurt. Mark Stone's been hurt. They've been banged up. And I think Edmonton, from a momentum standpoint, might be able to hold on to it. Just those games in hand. Just those games in hand. That makes a big difference. Vegas doesn't get healthy quick. It could stretch that out a little bit. So now we can't discount excuse me. We can't discount Los Angeles either, who's still right there in the mix as well. Only 2 points back of the Edmonton Oilers. Now Edmonton 2 games in hand on the LA Kings also. So it's going to be tight all the way to the end. I do think the games in hand make the difference for the Oilers.
Take advantage of them. That's what you need to do if you're the Edmonton Oilers. All right, let's go into the nasty chat a little bit here. I did ask, where does Sidney Crosby sit in all-time among NHL players? And is he a top 5 guy? Is he a top 10? Cass and I have him in the top 5. There's a Fish Tank says Gager's top 10 Oiler goalie. Agreed. Kevin says McKenna is top 10 Convo 2. I definitely think Mark Messier, and I'm completely biased, I'll be honest with you. I think he's a top 10 player of all time. Zedmo says Happy Gilmore had the hardest shot. Yes. What else? Vance Van Vanderven throwing out an Ogie Oglethorpe. I expect nothing less from you, Vance Van Vanderven. Zedmo says Guy Lafleur. Where do you put Yager, Cass? And you played against Yager, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be in that or close to that top 10. I'd have to chew through that and dig through that a little bit. But he's got to be in the conversation for top 10 of all time. I mean, similar to Mario, he's won a whole bunch. He's up there in terms of all-time points. If you lose the lockouts and if you lose them going back to Europe, like you probably would have put up even more. So yeah, it'd be pretty hard to keep Yager out of that conversation. Fish Tank says Sidney Crosby's in the top 20.
Whoa,
Fish Tank, we love you. That's a hot take.
Hot take.
Unless he was saying that I was top 20, in which case also give your head a shake for that one. There's a conversation about Pavel Bure fitting in there. And I would agree with Ace 96 in this, who says in the nasty chat that Bure was a top 10 talent, but not a top 10 player. IMO, which means for the people that don't understand the lingo, that means in my opinion. Right. And Ace 96, I agree with you on that. He probably was a top 10 talent, but not a top 10 player. I mean, similar to how I wouldn't put Conor McDavid in the top 10 players of all time at this point. He's the most talented, again, I think, of all time, but not in the top 10 yet. Bure, now, if he would have played on some teams that facilitated better, could he have been in that discussion? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely, in my opinion, probably a top 10 talent. Yeah.
How about Datsuk?
Datsuk's got to be. I think Datsuk gets overshadowed by Lidstrom, who's probably the second D-man on my list after Orr. And Lidstrom I might have in my number 6 slot. All time. So and other people that were there. I mean, you had Yzerman, you had Shanahan. You just had unbelievable teams around him as well in Detroit that kind of overshadow a little bit at times Datsuk, because you had Lidstrom, you had Yzerman, you had this great stuff, but he was something else in terms of pure talent, like incredibly talented, incredible vision, could do some crazy stuff. Where would he sit? We're going to have to revisit this on the Two Guys in a Goalie podcast, because it is such an interesting discussion. Datsuk, where would I end up with him? That's another one. Like, I got to chew on that, because that's like, again, there have been some unbelievable people to watch.
Guy Lafleur's name has popped up.
Guy Lafleur's name, and
Ron
rightfully
Francis, so. Honestly, like, he gets overlooked, but he was a great player for a long time. He played in Hartford for a while, Cass. Like, and I think where did he end up? Carolina and Toronto to wrap up his career. Obviously a great run in Pittsburgh, but he's a guy that people forget a lot about. Like, there were some awesome players that just kind of get left off of this list.
Yeah. Yeah, there are. Well, which makes it an interesting discussion, because you're going to have people that like different things stylistically more than others. And you're going to have people that value points more than others, goals more than others, wins, and Stanley Cups more than others. So there's a number of different ways of looking at it, which is why it makes it such a fun, interesting conversation, because you can have different opinions and you can disagree and you can argue. As you said, it's a good conversation for a 6 o'clock or lager, Tommy.
Yes, it is for many 6 o'clock or lagers. Reno says Jean Beliveau. That's a great one. Jason and Leduc says Crosby is top 10. I can think of a couple of goalies that should be ahead of him. Gretzky 1, or 2, Howe 3, Roy 4, Lemieux 5, Hasek 6, Broder 7, number 1 on this list for acting though. 8 Crosby, 9 Lidstrom, 10 Bork. Good night now. Jason and Leduc. Mic drop right there.
And that's the interesting. There's some. I mean, we didn't even bring up goalies, right? Like where Hasek could be up there. Patrick Waugh probably up there. Brodeur going to be out, like those three names on the goalie side, probably the top 3. And then you have to have conversations about, like Kevin McKenna throws in here. Bossy was amazing for sure. Injuries are a shame. Where you have to look at someone like that and say, well, he probably would have been. Yeah. If not for injuries, because he could do amazing things and just score like there's nobody's business. So you have, it's a super fun conversation, Tommy.
It is a fun conversation. And obviously, like Lafleur and Bossy, we lost recently, and super sad. And those guys were legends. And Lafleur, like in the mid to late 70s, he was the guy. He was the guy, right? Everything he touched went in. So yeah, it's Bossy. You could make an argument he might have been the greatest goal scorer of all time, but injuries, what was it? His back was a mess, and that cut his career pretty short, which is unfortunate. But there's been some excellent players. And that's the other thing too. Like, what do you look at when it comes to longevity and how that factors into these discussions, Cass, because I think that does need to be a part of the discussion. Is the greatness is one thing, the talent is another thing, but the ability to do it and sustain good health, not everyone can. And sometimes external forces affect that. Sometimes, people's makeup and their body also has a say in it.
Yeah, no, and it is, again, it's an interesting part of the discussion, because we could even look at it and you could make an argument, and I've heard that argument, that Mario was better than Gretzky if he stayed healthy.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Right, which is, I think, a reasonable. I mean, it's a reasonable argument to make, and a fair conversation to have. To say, here's a guy that came back from call it
cancer.
Overcoming cancer, and you're just like, and he still was absolutely unbelievable, and played kind of in the crossover era, where he played in the old era, but he played in the new era, in the clutch and grab era too. So it's like he played in multiple, we'll call it multiple generations, which is where that longevity discussion is an interesting one, because it's like when players play long enough that they see the game change and they're able to adapt and still be great. I mean, that's a part of that greatness and that greatest player of all time discussion is, adapting to that change. And so we could, I mean, Tommy, we could go on for hours about this. Really,
it is a fun conversation, but it does get people stirred up. That's why I was kind of curious. We're watching two of the best tonight. That's the bottom line, in Sidney Crosby and in Conor McDavid. Big Uke says, I would say that on anyone who is legitimately having the convo, he's always top 10. I'd put him 3 or 4, but he can reasonably argue from 3rd to 6th, I'd say. Is that in regard to Crosby? I think that is from Big Uke. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks for those texts. See what's going on in the nasty chat. Box Pounder says, where the hell is Ron Francis? I know this has kind of been a running joke, the Ron Francis thing over the last few weeks on our station, but legit amazing NHL player for a long time. Jimbo Okotoks says, Phil Kessel enters the chat. Get out of here, Jimbo Okotoks. Oh, that's crazy. Who is the best player, Cass, that you ever played it with or against?
Played against Crosby.
It's Crosby, right?
Yep.
And then when you stack up him with Ovechkin?
Crosby, I think I'd put Crosby in front of Ovechkin. Okay. Yeah, Ovechkin, you can argue is the best goal scorer of all time. Yep. Pure goals, no, pure goal scorer. He does other stuff too, but like you could make that argument easily. And hey, he's closing in on it, so of course you can have that conversation. But Crosby was better. Yep. Yeah. Overall, he's a better player. Yeah.
Still doing it. 63 points heading into action tonight. 32 goals and counting. Does he get to 50 again in his career? That would be something else. Running out of games, but definitely trying to will his team back into the postseason picture, heading into the stretch drive. We do have lineups from the Penguins confirmed here. Crosby between O'Connor and Raquel. Malkin with Smith and Puustinen. Eller between Gruden and Bemstrom. Gruden scored his first NHL goal last night. Achari with Harkins and Carter. That means no Bison King making his return to Edmonton with another team. Jesse Puljujarvi, 8 games played as a Penguin, 0 points, +1, 2 penalty minutes. On defense for the Pens, Pierre-Olivier Joseph with Chris Letang. You've got Marcus Pettersson with Erik Karlsson, Ryan Graves with Chad Ruedel, and between the pipes for the Pens, it will be Alex Nedeljkovic. For the Oilers, I'm looking for their lines today. Did you see them, Trev? I'm taking a quick look at whoever's at the rink and may have posted them. Maybe Reed Wilkins has them.
Yeah, I was keeping an eye. Haven't seen anything yet, Tommy.
No. Okay.
I would the assumption I think with Gagne coming in is that he could play. You could see him play that middle. You might see a little bit of a switch in that bottom 6, but should be pretty close to the same as we saw yesterday in Seattle.
Cass, I was going to throw this at you. What are you seeing from Evander Kane lately? Do you like his game? Do you want to see more? Who do you think he gels best with as they want to try to coax a better, consistent game out of him? Because he is a streaky scorer. He has 21 goals.
Yeah, streaky scorer. He has still found ways to put the puck in the net. I mean, I like right now him being away from Draisaitl. For whatever reason, those two don't seem to have unbelievable chemistry. Which is kind of funny because you think they would. Just stylistically, you're kind of like, oh, these two should fit together well, which is where they've had lots of opportunity. So I don't mind him playing with RNH. Now, if you're able to have another top 6 forward and a right wing come in, like Jake Gensel, if that were to be what was able to Ken Holland was able to manufacture.
Unlikely, but yes, I know.
Yeah, highly, I would say very highly unlikely. But if that were to happen, you'd like to see him with a little bit of other talent on there. Evander Kane, when he's aggressive, when he's physical, when he's yapping and playing that, just starting scrums and being involved, that's when he's at his best. And as you said, he's streaky with it at times, and it's a very difficult way to play night in and night out. So who gives him the best look at that? It hasn't been Draisaitl. So again, I'm comfortable with him. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, kind of filling other people in on that right side right now to see if he can find something that works.
Maple Jed with a late one says Mario might end up being the most accurate comparable for McDavid. That's interesting, but different style of players.
Yeah,
I think Lemieux was kind of more of the Jean Beliveau type, like smooth, lanky, skilled. McDavid, what did you call him? Not
explosive.
Explosive, yes.
Yeah. Explosive.
And Lemieux was just like graceful.
Yep. Very, very different. Yeah, very different. Yeah, he was silk.
Yeah.
If I was going to use one word, Mario was silk.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. All right, YouTube Trev, anything else from you tonight?
No, boys. That's pretty well it. I enjoy this. I love the top 5, top 10, like that conversation. Those I could just sign me up all day. It's super fun to talk. Talk shop with you guys. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, that's super sweet. Enjoy the game. It should be a good one. It's always exciting watching Connor and Sidney Crosby go head to head. So I'm expecting. They always bring their best. They don't like losing in these kind of situations. So it's gonna be cool to see. Have fun at the game, and we'll talk shop on the post-game show.
Very nice. Very nice. I want to throw one more in. It's off topic. It's related to a different team. Cass, you were a tough guy in the NHL. You know what that's all about. What do you think of Matt Rempe?
Oh, I love it.
Please. Yes.
I love it. I was talking with other old NHL enforcer Brant Myers the other day, and we were just both howling about it, where it's just like, and other enforcer that I've fought a number of times in the minors in Grant McNeil. We were all just laughing about it, where it's just like, you're a young guy, you're trying to make your way in the league, you're trying to claw your way into the lineup and stay there on a good team. So I love it. The kid's trying to do whatever he can to stay there. From a technical standpoint, he's not a great fighter. And certainly not, it's not a sustainable level.
Right.
The amount that it's been going on has not been sustainable, nor should he try to sustain it. But to have an impact, to have other teams talking about you, other players talking about you, management, coaches talking about you, discussing, hey, don't get involved with this guy, get involved with this guy, just stay away from him. We want him on the ice on the penalty. Just all the conversations about it. I think I love it. And I know, again, that makes me a bit of a dinosaur and people are fighting and all that, but hey, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. And I had to ask you about that. I'm so glad I remembered. Okay. Fantastic show. Pickard versus Nedeljkovic. Let's see. Crosby versus McDavid. Malkin versus Draisaitl. It should be a lot of fun over at Rogers Place. Cass and I are on our way there. YouTube Trev, excellent stuff. Holding it down back at our EST Global HQ. Huge thank you to Josh Getsoff for joining us. Penguins play-by-play man. You can watch him on their broadcasts. And huge thank you to everyone who tuned in, whether it was on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, or on our audio stream. And, of course, to those wwho watched on our EST YouTube channel. That's going to do it for the pregame show. For Trev and Cass, I'm Tom saying ciao for now.